Let's get it going. Game day, Winnipeg 8-0 Blue Bombers, 2-5 Montreal Alouettes as these two East and West Division rivals begin a home-and-home series on consecutive Thursdays. Welcome inside Bonfire Sports, everybody. Game day, Winnipeg with the legend to my virtual right, Chris Walby. Bluto, do you see I'm wearing a toque today?
Yeah, you see I'm wearing a lucky hat today.
Yeah, and you got the guns out, as always. Sun's out, guns out.
Sun's out, and it's just one of those days you got to enjoy summer, man. It's going fast.
It is. It is going fast. But do you know why I'm wearing a toque?
You got a haircut.
Because this Winnipeg Blue Bombers team is ice cold. Going into McMahon Stadium and playing as well as they did, following a bit of a shaky game in Edmonton the week before, things being quite different as far as the way things went against Calgary 2 weeks prior to that. They're beat, they're battered, they're bruised, they are tired. They have yet to have a bye week. This will be their 10th straight game in a row if you include the preseason. That's why I'm wearing a toque today. These Bombers are cold-blooded, man.
Oh, that is such a nice little soliloquy. I swear to God, I can hardly wait for the TV show.
Working on the screenplay.
But you're right. No, listen, they keep surprising me. And I was one of those guys that I had doubts against Calgary. I thought, this is the perfect opportunity. But we also said one thing. We said it would hurt Calgary more than it would hurt Winnipeg. Winnipeg came out and just had an outstanding performance. I mean, Zach and Dalton, it's a new show, those two guys. We've talked about the relationship those two guys have had all year. Obviously, I think they're both performers for the month for July.
Yeah.
I know Zach is for sure. You just listen. Every time I think, look at it. He had a kind of tough game. He only had 7 completions or 6 completions against Edmonton. He still win. Last week, 22 of 30. Nice job again, 70+%. And you know what? 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. He made it look easy against what I thought was a pretty good defense, but he moved the ball. And, obviously, Calgary, I read the article by Bo Levi, who's, very angry, but he says, we'll meet him in the playoffs. They do get a rematch in, I think, 3 weeks or 2 weeks from now after the Montreal back-to-backs.
August 24th, yep.
Yeah, but I don't know, man. I know there's no weaknesses. Remember we talked at the beginning of the year, we started talking about Mark Leggio. We said we had a big issue. We had a kicker. Is this guy going to be good? I mean, 90% on field goals. Yes, he's only 82% on extra points, but his punting has been phenomenal. He had like a 50-something yard average again in Calgary. I mean, the kid is playing super, super good. So, I mean, all those naysayers, listen, you got to take off. Leave Mr. Number 13 alone right now because he's doing the job.
No, he is. And it has only missed 2 field goals so far this season, right? So that always helps. I understand the converts and that sort of thing, but, as Zach Collaros says, snap and clear, flush it and let it go. The Bombers have come out with victories in all of their games. So no harm, no foul, as they say, missing some extra points. Now, Chris, I want your opinion on this. Could this be a trap game? Short week, travel from Mountain Time Zone to Eastern Time Zone. One practice this week in Winnipeg. Mike O'Shea spoke about how different this week is in just the way that still lots of intensity, but just shorter bursts of it. Getting a little bit healthy with Jackson Jeffcoat returning to the lineup. But still no Greg Ellingson, still a bunch of guys on the 6-game injured list. Montreal is hungry. Montreal is 1 game out of first place in the East. If there was ever a time to have Winnipeg ripe for the picking, wouldn't it be right now?
Well, think about this too, right? I mean, they played Toronto. They missed the last second field goal to lose that game. They had an opportunity last week. They pull, Trevor Harris with a supposed concussion or safety protocol. They put in the backup Dominic Davis, who throws one pass and an interception, and that's the game over. They've had opportunities to win football games. Now, I know their owner, I think it's David Stern. I think that's who it is.
Yep.
Montreal has predicted that he feels that and he does a great job of getting the fans involved. He's really on Twitter, loves Twitter.
Yes, he does.
Talking about how he feels that the Alouettes are at that stage when they can knock off the defending champs, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Can they do it? You know what? if Trevor Harris can play the game, and they got some talent here, buddy. That Eugene Lewis, some of the catches this kid is making a wide receiver for them they're just outstanding. I mean,
he's awesome.
It surprises me. Jake Winnipeg had like 10 touchdowns last year, 0 touchdowns this year. When is his breakout going to be? You know what I mean? So they got Virgie Mayala. They got some guys. I think they missed Standback. Obviously, William Standback, the outstanding, running back from Montreal, still not in the lineup.
Yeah, hurt like first half of the first game of the season. It's really tough. East Division MOP nominee, right?
Yeah, and then you look at they got Jeshrui Antwi, and I mean he's got the longest run of the year and 70 yards, which I was very surprised. He's averaging 6.6 yards a carry. But this is an offensive line that's had some issues. They gave up 5 sacks last week to Hamilton. They can get pressure. Now you got Jackson Jeffcoat back there. He's hungry. Mr. 9 sack last year. 7 tackles, missed about 3 games, I believe. So he's really looking forward to get back and making an impact in a game. So he's only going to increase the value of what the pressure of that defensive line can get on Trevor Harris. So yeah, now I've kind of went in a roundabout way to answer your question, DB. Do I think it could be? Yeah, you know what? You don't like to think that. Like if I was betting man, I put my money on Winnipeg. There's no doubt because I mean, just looking at the record. But then I would look at some of the intangibles, like I mentioned, the close games they did lose, the way they do, the way they lost. There is potential, and it's at home in Montreal. They're 1-1 at home. They're only 1-3 versus the West, but there is potential for them to do something. I mean, would I be surprised? Yes, probably. But can it happen? Hey, anything can happen on any given Sunday. Ooh, you liked it. Any given Sunday, brother. There you go.
Yeah, but it's going to be Thursday night at Percival Molson in Montreal.
Okay, so you talk about your toque, and I'm talking about any given Sunday. It's a lie.
Friday Night Lights.
Okay, there you go. But it's not Friday.
Well, I like this comment from Larry Ward, who's watching live on YouTube. When we lose the games we think we should win, that's a trap game. Absolutely. Should Winnipeg win this game? Do they think they're going to win this game? They're 8-0. Of course you do.
Yeah, I think there's not a weakness on this team. I mean, I thought maybe they'd miss something with Malcolm Thompson out of safety and Nick Halley getting a start. But I mean, he had like 6 or 7 tackles. Played a nice job, came up with a couple of big hits. I think he really earned his keep last week. So yeah, it's just hard for me when I break it down by position that I think that the Bombers, I just can't see that. Yeah, you're right. There's the one thing you hit me on the head with, and that was only 1 practice. That is tough. I mean, you just go in there. Basically, the offense is going to do what they do. Yeah, that's what they're going to do. Because you go into the game, every game they go into, you run about 5 or 6 plays to kind of figure out what the defense is going to give you. So they'll have an idea of what the Montreal defense, Noel Thorpe, the defense coordinator, is going to throw at them. But, I tell you, is this the time they could? Absolutely, because of that one aspect. And because of the fact, as you say, they're beat up. I mean, yeah, they're all playing, but they're nicked up. They're short week. They haven't had a bye yet, which is stupid. Yeah, I don't understand how they did that. I mean, BC's had like almost all theirs already, and Winnipeg doesn't get one for another, I think, 3-4 weeks yet. End of August, I believe, they get the first bye, and then they got 3 in the end of the year. Well, maybe that's going to help bringing some guys back, like maybe Brandon Alexander, or are they going? Obviously they're not rushing them back because of the play of the guys they got playing at safety. So they have such depth. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're not forcing anybody back. We talked last week about Nick Dembski, the X factor. What he's going to bring to the game. Boom, right there, 2 touchdowns. You look at Brady Oliveira, 120 yards rushing. Yep. That old line, no sacks against. Mind you, there was no sacks, no interceptions. It was a clean game by both teams. Even the penalties were good. So, all right, that was my thing.
Well, and I do want to tell people that a little bit later in the show, we're going to hear from Joey Alfieri of the Montreal Alouettes, get some details on a year of real change in Montreal, and talk about some of the talented players they're getting back in their lineup, as well as the ones that have been contributing all season, including some thoughts on Gino Lewis. We are going to hear from Blue Bombers offensive coordinator Buck Pierce in a few minutes, as well as Willie Jefferson. I asked Dalton Schoen about how tired the team is, but Chris, you mentioned that one practice this week. Let's hear from the head coach, Mike O'Shea, on just having one session here in Winnipeg to prepare for Thursday's game in Montreal? Goes into a week like this where you're not able to maybe practice as much as other weeks.
I mean, the players have a great understanding of what they're doing. We've been in this situation before. I think you rely on your prep from previous weeks. You rely on your fitness level that you've been maintaining for, since before you got to training camp. So really it's take great care with your bodies, make sure you're well rested, make sure you're putting the right things in your body, and just make sure you're physically ready to go.
A lot has been said about this stretch of 3 road games and the buys and the rest, but is this kind of a dig deep time for the team?
I don't think so. Once again, I think the guys have a great understanding of how to handle a pile of different situations. They've been building this for a number of years, right? So it just kind of rolls along. I'm not sure that it's digging deeper than any other week, right? If you don't play your best, somebody's going to beat you no matter what. So buys, time off, days off, all that stuff doesn't really enter into a lot of discussion.
There's the head coach, Mike O'Shea, following their only practice this week prior to the game in Montreal. Chris, steady ship as she goes. Mike O'Shea not saying this game is any different than any other this season, which is really the mantra. But when you have a short week and you have a travel and guys are clearly, tired physically and probably mentally as well, what goes into ensuring your body is in the right shape to play a football game just 5 days after you went to war in Calgary?
I just think it's so different the way they do it. And I think O'Shea should be getting a lot of credit for the way he treats his players. There's no way they're just doing walkthrough. I mean, it's a walkthrough now. They get the guys in the ice tubs. That's the biggest thing. He hit it on the head when he said it's about what you put in your body. Drink a lot of fluids, and I'm talking water. I'm talking really get you, whatever they got to do to get themselves re-energized. But having said that, he's not beating them up. In the old days, you'd come back, you'd do your run, and, we'd still have full practice before even on a short week. Nowadays, I think it's way smarter. Safety protocols are phenomenal. You let these guys get rest, even though albeit a short time, and you hope, and he said on the head, as long as you play well, you got a chance to win. But if you don't show up, and it doesn't matter. And we've seen this with any other team in any kind of league. You want to talk to Jets sometimes, and they're supposed to beat somebody. They get there and they just have a slow game. They don't get going and somebody picks up. And maybe Montreal starts the game off with, and they start doing some things really well. Now you got to make sure that Winnipeg wakes up. Granted, the Bombers are a great second half team. But having said that, I've always liked Trevor Harris. I think he's a heck of a quarterback. I think he's smart. I like what they have offensively. So to me, I think it'll be a good game. I just think sometimes I get influenced by the record, 2-5, and the mistakes they've made at crucial times that have just killed that team. Penalties. I mean, they're the second most penalized team in the league. Over 700 yards, almost a penalty yards. It's just ridiculous. I mean, and I know that, with Danny Machocho got rid of Kahari Jones, who quickly went to Hamilton, he said one of the big problems was discipline. And the first game he coached, they had 190 yards of penalty. And I remember reading the article, it's not all Kahari's fault. And it's never one player's fault. You know what? It's like I said before, you can have about 20 stars, but if the stars don't play together, if you don't have chemistry, you're not going to win football games. You've got to create that culture, that chemistry. And that's one thing the Bombers have done. They have such a great, well-rounded group of veterans that they understand what they have to do. And the young guys coming in are right there learning, drinking from the Kool-Aid bottle of the veterans.
Well, you need to do that, right? Like the young players need to learn from the veteran players, as you mentioned, Chris. And Mike O'Shea even talks about that, how, he's kind of hands off in the locker room, letting the veterans govern the young players. FIFO, right? Fit in or figure it out.
That's pretty good.
Course, but Yeah, but hey, want to welcome everybody who joined us from Winnipeg Sports Talk. This is Game Day Winnipeg. The legend Chris Walby to your virtual left and my virtual right, the greatest offensive lineman to ever play the game. North Winnipeg zone. Chris Walby getting you set for Bombers Alouettes and bringing that perfect 8-0 record into Montreal on Thursday night. We're going to hear from offensive coordinator Buck Pierce, Dalton Schoen, fresh off being named a top performer this week, as well as a top performer for the month of July. We'll hear from Willie Jefferson as well on the program, and my conversation with Joey Alfieri of the Montreal Alouettes to get a perspective from Montreal. Jackson Jeffcoat back into the lineup, Chris, after missing 3 games. A huge addition to the Winnipeg defense. No longer can the defense just focus on Willie Jefferson on one side. You got another all-star on the other bookend in number 94, who, for my money, might be playing just as well as Willie is these days.
And I have to give I'm not sure who made the comment, and God bless these guys that are in here on the line with us, because they corrected me. I thought it was 3 games too, and they said, no, he played in the first Calgary game, so he's only missed 2 weeks. So right on. I mean, that's the way to stay on top of it. And hey, listen, sometimes even a big like me needs a slap on the head to wake up and make sure you get the right thing. So thanks for giving me the right information. Peeps.
Yeah, I know. It's 3 games for Greg Ellingson, and he's
right.
still out. Also interesting this week, Chris, starting safety Malcolm Thompson, the Canadian, practiced day 1 before the game in Calgary and then did not practice again. So it appears he suffered an injury in practice. He was on the 1-game injured list last week. He's now on the 6-game injured list, leaving Ellingson as the only player on the 1 game. So not good news there as far as another defensive player going down and landing on the 6th game. No update as of yet. People are asking me every day, when is Brandon Alexander going to be ready to return? No word, no indication. Don't hold your breath. There's no reason to rush him back. They need him healthy for the playoffs. Nick,
he's gonna have a hard time saying that, because I'll tell you one thing: when you're missing this much action, it takes a while to get not only your game speed back up, but just your reaction skills to seeing everything again. Once you've been playing, and he was an all-star last year, he saw everything in front of him. Everything was slowing down. They call it like you're slowing down. You can see things before they happen. You have great anticipation. You can break on plays. All of a sudden, you haven't played for 7, 8 weeks, whatever it's going to be. There's going to be an adjustment period for Brandon Alexander. Don't expect him to come back and just be the first, like he was. It's going to take a couple of games to get his feet under him. And that's my belief from the experience of coming off or seeing anybody that's been out of the lineup for a number of games.
One of the key matchups I'm looking towards on Thursday night, Chris, is Gino Lewis at wide receiver against Demario Houston or Dietrich Nichols. They will be on that side of the field. Gino will come in to slot back. It could be Dietrich Nichols. It could be Demario Houston. Dietrich Nichols, for my money, could be and is the best defensive back in the CFL this season. They just don't throw to him. Bo threw to him a little bit, but few quarterbacks have the cojones that Bo does in putting footballs into dangerous areas. Up against Gino Lewis, who I feel strongly is the best receiver in the CFL today. We know Trevor Harris can throw the lights out. He is often a 350, 400-yard passer. That's a huge, huge area I look for. And when Winnipeg is down to their 3rd-string safety, all due respect to Nick Hallett, but it was Brandon Alexander, then Malcolm Thompson, now Nick Hallett there. They're going to need his help over the top if Gino continues to be as dominant as he has been so far this season.
Yeah, he had 5 tackles last week. Nick Hallett did. I thought he played very well. Came up and supported the run defense as well. I thought he was in the right place at the right time. It'll be very interesting to watch how he plays again against these guys. As you mentioned, it's not just Gino Lewis. Well, I do agree with you on that. I think he's one of the most – if he's not the top, he's one of the 2 top receivers in the league. But you got Reggie White Jr., you got Jake Winnick, who I talked about last year, having almost 10 touchdowns. You got Julian Grant. I mean, they've got Herjima Jala. They got Tyson Philpott. They got the big thing you're going to mention, and you hit it up the top of the head. We didn't talk about it, but they lost one guy that I think is a real key, and that is field position guy, and that is Chandler Worthy.
Huge.
Here's the guy that was leading the league in punt return and kickoff returns. He got 2 touchdowns and kickoff returns. He was giving them excellent starting field position. Now they're going to go with a newcomer named Warren Newman out of Jackson State. First start for the young man. So we'll see what he does. He's obviously a little speedster to be back there. But, yeah, it's going to be interesting because I think Janarian Grant on the other side, obviously he leads the CFL in kickoff return yardage or average at 30 yards a return. He's getting it done there on the kickoff return team. So the special teams for the Bombers have been outstanding, both on cover and on blocking for punt and kickoff return. So, yeah, it's just another one of those things where I got to go. If I got to go special teams, I got to give a check. Bombers. I go to the O-line, check. Bombers. I go D-line. I still got to give check to the Bombers. Linebackers.
Yeah, Jeffcoat back. Yeah.
Jeffcoat back. I got to go. I mean, there's not probably anywhere that I'm going to give the. I'm not. I'd love to give a check mark to the Montreal Alouettes, but I just don't know where I'm going to do it. So.
No, it's tough. You know, we know how good the Winnipeg Blue Bombers are. They go into this game, as you'll see in the ticker below, 5.5-point favorites in Montreal. So 2 touchdowns wins a point spread bet on that. And have to mention, we are an affiliate of Sports Interaction. So if you use this link that you see on your screen right now, sia.com/bonfire. Sign up, get a bonus. You'll help support us here on the channel. We really appreciate that. And they've got some great prop bets for the CFL as well. I might have just put a little sprinkle on, the 64-1 long shot, if you want to call it that, the Blue Bombers going undefeated in the regular season. So a chance to, take a shot there. You can also bet on them to win their 3rd straight Grey Cup. SIA.com/bonfire. Go check it out and sign up there. But the 5.5-point favorites, Chris, is an interesting one because when you look at Chandler Worthy and how explosive he has been and now being out of the lineup for Montreal, to me, that would have been, like a game X factor when you look at a likely result and score. You take Chandler Worthy out. Mario Elford, who was their outstanding kick returner for the last couple seasons in Montreal, they released him because Worthy was so good. He's now with Saskatchewan. You take that all out, I think a 2-touchdown win for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers is probably, I would call that a likelihood. The short week, the travel, the rest, I understand that will be a thing. But as people have even mentioned in the live chat, 1-0 every week. If you think Winnipeg is going to win Thursday night, you got to think they win by at least 2 touchdowns against an Alouettes team that, hasn't really shown any consistency this season.
Well, you hit it on the head. I mean, that's very well put. And I will say this one comment that I was going to get to, not to beat it to death, but Warren Newman, the new kid on Jackson State, great comment. I think it was Tyler put it in there. What he was talking about is anybody that's coached by Prime Time, who's the head coach of Jackson State.
Deion Sanders.
This kid is probably, so he's probably pretty talented kid. So be very interested to see what he does. It's going to be interesting. But here's another matchup that I think Dalton Schoen or Nick Dembski, the 2 slot backs, I believe are going to have a crazy game. They're going to be going against Najee Murray, who coincidentally was one of the best friends with Zach Collaros.
Zach Collaros, yeah.
And then the other guy that had a really rough game a couple of games ago, Wesley Sutton, who I'm surprised, 3 PIs in that one game that cost him the football game. I see this 2 slot backs having a big game against those 2 guys.
Yeah,
and I shouldn't say Najee Murray because they like Najee, and he's not really. He's got 4 pass knockdowns, 25 tackles. He's doing a good job, but I just think Wesley has a propensity to take the PIs, grab the cloth when he's worried about getting beat. And once you get a couple PIs, it's like getting a holding penny in O-line. They start looking for you. They look for your number, and maybe the really tight ones you get called against now because of that.
A good opportunity here from Blue Bombers offensive coordinator Buck Pierce. Things started to get rolling, especially with the run game in Calgary. But I asked the OC here in Winnipeg a couple questions this week. Half of your schedule behind you or in the books in just a matter of 2 days. How impressive is it, or have you ever seen a receiver in his first year of pro football play like the way he does, and how stabilizing has that been with, some of the injuries your receivers have gone through?
Yeah, I mean, Dalton right away from camp, you could tell there was something about him, even as college tape, some of his NFL work. We were excited to get him here into the building, and guy took every rep at camp. Played multiple spots. Showed up in shape. Hasn't missed a beat. Very high football IQ. He's getting better and better each week, and with just understanding the CFL game, right, and understanding how to play the receiver position. So that's been awesome to see. Also with Dalton, he's able to give us some flexibility as well. When you have a guy that can do multiple things and move around here and there, it opens everybody else up as well, right? So there's a lot of things that he does well for us, and we're continuing to learn more about each other, and hopefully get better each week. But he's been a very good pro in what's been his rookie season in the CFL, and I think that's the most impressive thing is he works hard, he's humble, and he's excited about the process, and I think he loves playing with the guys.
Tell me what goes into facing the Montreal Alouettes defense, a team that moved on from their defensive coordinator just a few weeks ago. Does that add a wrinkle to game planning for a team? Tough for the layman, us on the outside to see if there's huge differences in that Alouettes defense. But does that pose a bit of a challenge, or are they kind of playing the same system that they have all season?
Well, I think every first time you play a team, it's the first go back to back, and we've seen them on tape, but every team plays you a little bit different, so there's always a little bit of that every week. But then you look at what they're doing, defensively. The one thing I'll tell you about a Northrop defense is they're going to play hard. They're going to be physical. They're going to want to get after the quarterback. They pride themselves on the physicality up front, and like I told the guys today, we got to go out there and be ready to play one of our most physical games of the season. So we know those things about them, and I'm sure he's continuing to learn his personnel over there and what they want to be. So we got to be prepared, worry about our focus, our execution, and how we handle ourselves, and just trying to go out there and play a clean game like we did last week.
There's Blue Bombers offensive coordinator Buck Pierce speaking to the media just a couple days ago in their only practice here in Winnipeg. Chris did talk about Dalton Schoen, and we will definitely talk about him as the show goes on. But in Montreal, they didn't just fire head coach Kahari Jones. They also released defensive coordinator Darrin Miles. So, long-time defensive coach in the CFL, Noel Thorpe, takes over. That has to be a challenge. Do you remember similar instances in your playing career, Chris, where you faced a team, they started the season with one style of defense, then, coaching changes happen or that sort of thing? Probably tough to game plan and film study on the Alouettes right now.
Well, it's funny you talk about the Alouettes, because I remember we were in the airport going to play Montreal and the team folded. So we were in the airport. So it was a huge change there.
Wow.
Right. Then they came back as the Concords, then they went back to the Alouettes. So yeah, there's always been a change. But having said that, Noel Thorpe, and that's a great point too he brought up, because Noel Thorpe is he's a veteran defensive coordinator. He's been around a long time. He's worked with Danny Machocho before. They have a great relationship. But usually find that when a coach takes over, he'll usually bring people he's very familiar with or understands what they're trying to orchestrate as far as offense or defense. So Noel Thorpe's huge. I think another big change is obviously the fact that you got now, one of the greatest throwers. I think he's the all-time anywhere leading passer, and Anthony Cavill is the offensive coordinator now. So he's got I think it's the third game under his belt now. So again, it's a process, DB. It's a process of getting the players to understand what system you're trying to implement, and to understand why, and know your position. And so that's a big thing. It's almost like training camp for these guys when you get a new coach. That's why I think that their owner, David Stern, is very excited, because I think he figures, you know what? They got a great opportunity now. They're starting to get familiar with what they're asking on their positions. And we'll see what they come out with tomorrow night in Montreal.
Well, it's it's a chance for the Alouettes and David Stern, their head coach, or pardon me, their owner, to put his fingerprints and his stamp on the team. But when it comes to Winnipeg's offense versus this Montreal defense, Canadian defensive back and linebacker Chris Aki returns to the lineup. Avery Ellis, their outstanding defensive end, is out this week. Mike Moore moves from tackle to defensive end, so there'll be some changes there. But maybe most important in looking at Winnipeg's offense versus Montreal's defense is how suddenly Brady Oliveira is a 100-yard rusher, 110 yards, averaging over 7 yards per carry in Calgary. That's not an easy task. You'd think he would do that against a weaker team, not the Calgary Stampeders, but something changed and Brady got it going. Winnipeg's offense got it going. This is suddenly a much more dangerous offense when the run game is on.
Well, and they weren't living straight up the middle anymore either. We're not doing the fancy, zone blocking. I mean, yeah, they may do a lot of that. They do some other combination blocks. I thought they did some really nice double teams. But they were doing some guard tackle runs, which I love. I mean, get the big boys involved, get Stanley and Jamarcus involved in the blocking and, one-on-one. Listen, with Mike Moore's a defensive tackle. He's a defensive tackle for a reason. Now they move him defensive end. I'm running at him right now. That's what I'm going after. I'm running that side right now. Promise you. But and that's he's just not an end. I don't think he's an end. I think it's an emergency to move him out there. Probably the best they have. Maybe you're going to see somebody else. I know they got another guy by the name of Isaiah Gay, and then they got that Brock Wanlock, but he's a Canadian too, and he has
Manitoba Bison.
Yes, I was going to write that down. But anyway, yeah. So I mean, there's just certain things I think you have to look at. And I remember when we played guys, if we knew we had a weak spot to attack on the line, much like they do. They move Willie Jefferson, the Bombers, all over to try and find a weak spot there so he can get penetration or get his hands up. So, yeah, I think that if I'm running the ball, I'm definitely running at Mike. But then again, I love the way that you did. Brady answered the critics. Good for him, man. Good for him. And they ran the ball. That's a huge thing. A balanced attack. They ran the ball 22 times, averaging 7.3 yards a carry. You know what? That's about as good as you can get, man. So,
what did you think? What did you think of Dakota Prukop coming in? Man, he is dangerous. Zach Collaros called him a beast after the game. What a nice dynamic he brings.
You know what? He reminds me, and when I look at Montreal too, Dominic Davis. Both guys don't really get the opportunity to throw the ball very often, but they all are short yardage guys. Dominic Davis is another big lad that gets a lot of touchdowns on. I think
leads the league
one game, but Prukop is a horse. You're right about it, man. I don't know how many times in a year I don't have the stat that we've been stopped. I think we have 2 turnover and downs. And I believe one was with Drew Brown. I don't think anywhere with Dakota Prukop. So just tells you his value in short yardage situations.
Some people asking if Johnny Augustine is injured. He's on the injury report, but he is in the lineup for Thursday against the Montreal Alouettes. The only real change to the injured list is Jackson Jeffcoat coming off. He will start at defensive end opposite Willie Jefferson, of course, and starting safety Malcolm Thompson, seemingly injured in practice a couple weeks ago, moves from the 1 game to the 6-game injured list with a calf injury. So no updates right now on when Greg Ellingson could be available, Brandon Alexander, so many of those other guys on the Blue Bombers 6-game injured list. But I'm sure people, somebody in the live chat today calling him Johnny Magic, and unfortunate that, he can't get a little bit more work. Yeah, there it is. It's John in the live chat saying hardly used. He'd want to be on a team that uses him more than the Bombers do. Well, he decided to sign a 2-year contract extension. Augustine did, along with Brady Oliveira. They're 2 very close friends. They want to be on this team together. And they know it's probably going to take 2 of them at one of the most battered positions in pro football, Chris, right? Like, you might need both of them.
Well, it was interesting. He didn't carry the ball once last week against Calgary. He did not carry the ball once. And I thought, okay, for me, there's got to be a reason. He's an emergency, obviously. And if they don't have to use him, that's just my feeling. He's probably banged up a bit. And they said, you know what? The way Brady's run the football, we don't have to, incorporate. We give Johnny a rest. I don't know if Johnny's on many special teams. I don't think he is. But
I
anyway,
think he might be.
Well, then he's only doing that because obviously I was surprised. I was actually surprised he didn't get any carries. But that just tells me in my own thinking that he probably is banged up a little bit, and they were just going to go with Brady, and Brady answered the bell. 15 carries, 110 yards, nice average, long of 31, and he seemed to just be running a full speed, breaking tackles now, and running straight ahead, not stutter stepping, trying to find the hole, just going to where the hole is right now. And that's what good backs do. And we always said this. Maybe it was going to take some time. Yeah, I know it's been 8 games. But maybe it's going to get some time where they work together. And that's the O-line and whether Mike Miller's in a fullback or, just the O-line and Brady, or whoever is running the football. It's just getting continuity with those guys, understanding how they like to block, seeing in the hole and believing in the hole. That's a big thing, believing in the hole. Sometimes your eyes can fool you and your eyes are shifting all over. But the hole is there. If it's between guard and tackle, that's where you go. If it's between guard and center, you go there. Sometimes backs have a tendency to get that, what I call eyes that chase bees. They're all over the place, and they don't even know where they're going, man. So then
it's very likely a confidence-building game for Brady Oliveira. St. McCole in the live chat says Prukop's ability to run inside and outside on short yardage is the difference. Of course, he has the ability to throw. New rule in the CFL this year, you can have 2 quarterbacks on the field at the same time. Maybe you sneak one of those guys in. You flip Prukop in for Drew Wolodarski on the far side of the field. You might be able to sneak something in there and do some trickery. But Chris, did you notice that moment in the game in Calgary where the Stampeders didn't even seem to realize Dakota Prukop stayed in the game on first down? They really caught them off guard there. That's the benefit, the kind of Chris Strevelerism in the Buck Pierce offense, that you can keep your short yardage quarterback in and catch a defense off guard.
Well, usually the way you catch them off guard, though, DB, is you go hurry up offense. Because if they huddle up, they give a chance for the defense to change their personnel depending who the quarterback is. The fact that they go hurry up, they just got to line up. And then, like you said, Prukop takes off, does a nice job. He runs the ball extremely hard, and he's got a great arm. We saw last year on, I believe, a second and something, and he threw a deep ball for a touchdown. So he can get it done. Does he want to play more? Yeah, but you know what? This whole team, this is a team that's the most unselfish that I've ever seen. I mean, the guys, you always want to play. You all want to be the guy, but they love to play for each other. They love the fact they're winning 8-0. They're loving the fact they got a great shot at getting another dang ring. Whoo, baby. They're going to have to go get it. I hope they got these. They must have these jewelers on call on short dial.
Yeah, that is very likely with the way they're playing right now, looking for 3 straight. Rasheed Bailey is somebody, Chris, who's been getting a little bit of criticism because his offensive numbers maybe aren't where many people expected them to be. Listening to head coach Mike O'Shea following the win in Calgary, talking about Bailey doing all of those other things right. Zach Collaros mentioning how they ask the receivers to do a lot. They have a lot of responsibility in the run game and even blocking in the pass game. And that Rasheed Bailey, one play in particular, I think it was on the Janarian Grant jet sweep. He had his man and pushed him way downfield, getting the job done. So it's not just Dalton Schoen putting up the big numbers. It's not just Nick Dembski pulling in 2 touchdowns in the first half last week. Everybody is contributing. Even a Drew Wolodarski with a key second down conversion last week.
Yeah, they're all contributing. I mean, they got so many talents. He threw to 6 different receivers. Collaros did. It's just they just have so much talent offensively. And when you start, I mean, this is a team that we really talked about defensively. Always defense wins championships. But the way the Bombers offense orchestrated against a very good Calgary team was just poetry to watch. Yeah. Just move the ball at will, seemingly at times with no pressure. And even when they did get a little pressure on Zach, he just kind of skirted around and threw and found somebody wide open. That's a great relationship he has with his receivers. And that usually takes a time to build, but they just seem to have the chemistry right now. Nick Dembski didn't look like he missed a beat. We were talking last week. I wonder if they rushed him back. Well, I stand corrected. They should rush him back.
No kidding.
Seriously, he had a great game. I mean, obviously,
he really did. He looked fresh, and for somebody that didn't seemingly practice for those 4 weeks he was off. But now Winnipeg has lost one of its early 6-game activations. Each team gets 2 per season. They pulled Nick Dembski off the 6-game early. He is a high salary player, so they will get benefit. Or there was benefit of having him on there, but coming off early, they'll only be able to activate one other player early this season. Speaking of some of those things we just touched on, Chris, good time to hear from Blue Bombers defensive end Willie Jefferson. I asked him right off the top just how good it felt to go into Calgary and beat Bo Levi Mitchell and the Calgary Stampeders, a team that is undefeated in games following a bye at home with Bo Levi as their quarterback. Willie, how you feeling?
I'm good. Ready to fly to Montreal in the morning.
I know you guys are on to Montreal and you want to get to 1-0, but looking back to last week, if we could, beating Calgary in McMahon, them coming off a bye and never having lost coming off a bye with Bo Levi as their starter. Everybody talking about it being the heavyweight bout of the season. I know your goal is still months away, but how good did it feel to win that game?
It felt really good. Not too many teams have the opportunity to go into that stadium and win, especially, like you said, after a bye week with Bo and things like that. So it was like the odds were kind of really stacked up against us, but this season, man, we have a really good team. We have a really good defense. We got an explosive offense, and we're trying to get it to where we're playing together all 3 phases for the whole game and not just the second half. And I feel playing against Calgary, the way we played them, the time we played them, everything, like how everything stacked up, I feel like that was a great game for us. We were banged up. We got some guys hurt, and we still went up in there and handled business. Like it was a tight game till the 4th quarter, and then our offense did what they had to do, and the defense came up with some stops, and we came out with a win. So like I said, well, like you said, them being as tough as they are at home and us being the team that we are right now in the middle of the season, battle for number 1 in the West, and we know pretty much everything is harder in the West. So it was a good game. We got 3 weeks until we see them again here at home, and it'll be another tough test then.
Can't wait. Appreciate it, Willie. Travel safe.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
Willie Jefferson talking about how good it felt to beat Calgary in McMahon Stadium last week, Chris. And here's the reality. This Blue Bombers team is so locked into being 1-0 every week, focused on their goal, the weekly goal being a win in the upcoming game, their overall goal to hoist the Grey Cup in late November. But when you beat a team like Calgary, win the season series, I do the best I can. Admittedly, I do the best I can to get some, candidness from these players. Willie Jefferson, not afraid to state what to me is obvious. That is, it must have felt really, really good to beat Bo twice.
Oh, it's funny you talk about Willie, and I'll talk about the equipment manager, Brad Foddy, who I called last week and said, "Hey, Brad, I need a favor." I said, "By the way, man, you guys look like really good to get a 3-peat." And he goes, and his first quote to me was, 1-0, Walby, 1-0. I
That's
thought
the equipment guy.
Even the mantra of the equipment guy. Oh, okay, that's mine. Don't worry about it.
You made me nervous there.
Very sensitive.
Yes. Well, you've been sensitive your whole life, just not physically on the football field.
No, I'm a sensitive guy. I love everybody.
You are. Well, that's why you get all the ladies, right?
Yeah. Let's not go there, man.
No, we won't go there. We'll leave that for Game Day After Dark. Of course, be sure to join us for Game Day After Dark immediately following Bombers Alouettes on Thursday night. Still to come, Joey Alfieri of the Montreal Alouettes will join us. We'll check in on the latest in La Belle Province. But here in Winnipeg, I see the most pressing thing right now for the Blue Bombers is continuing to have that continuity on offense. Dalton Schoen has been a revelation, Chris.
Yes.
So impressive as a first-year pro. I understand he's been in NFL facilities and he's been in the NFL and that sort of thing, but never played in any pro games. Was on the practice roster, on the scout team at Kansas State for 2 full years before he got an opportunity, and then really elevated himself to being a draftable player. Went undrafted in the NFL, signed with his hometown Kansas City Chiefs. He's from just south of there in Overland Park. But getting opportunities from seemingly being overlooked. And here he is making the loss of Carlton Agadosi, making the loss of Nick Dembski for 4 weeks, making the loss of Greg Ellingson now for a third straight game, much more digestible for the Blue Bombers.
Absolutely. I mean, when you look at Dalton, what he's done, I mean, we all thought he might be a special player just of how he played in preseason. I mean, right now he's number 1 receiver in the CFL, 583 yards, 5 catches over 30. He has the longest touchdown in the CFL as a pass. He's got 17 second down conversions. That tells me who the go-to guy is for Zach when they need it, right? And I tell you right now, he's number 1 in CFL in that as well. So he's got everything going for him right now, and he's probably blessed he didn't play a game, because if he would have played a game in the NFL, he would not be eligible to be up for a Rookie of the Year. Right now, he's definitely one of the front runners. I mean, you're looking at a number of front runners who could be getting the awards at end of the season. But right now, just the way he's playing, we've talked about Dalton. It's very unusual, and I think people have to understand it's very unusual for a receiver to come in and develop that type of chemistry that quickly with a quarterback. Mm-hmm. And that's what he has right now. We've talked about this to death, but seriously, Zach loves going to him. He looks for 83. And 83, I mean, we've seen him slide, make catches in the end zone, just does a great thing. I mean, and then you got Nick Dembski and Ellingson coming back. Then you got Agadoski, or what's his name?
Carlton Agadosi, yeah, on the 6th game, but we'll see.
But he's a guy that, like you said, you can't pull. You only got one guy you can pull off, so you can't pull off right now unless he's a guy. But where is he going to fit? But you got to look at him coming back, saying, "Man, he was a huge target in that game. 2 big touchdowns. He's a target in the end zone that Zach just threw the ball high and he climbed the ladder and got it. So they have a plethora of talent. There's a word for plethora. Yes. I did go to school. I did teach school. So there you go, kids.
Let me look for my thesaurus. It's around here somewhere.
You got a source.
Chris, Jackson Jeffcoat returning to the lineup. Just how important is that? When this defense has seemingly been very, very good, especially the defensive line. Prior to that game in Calgary, they had not allowed a rushing touchdown. They go up against easily the best running back in the CFL. I don't care what the league leaders said. He's missed a little bit of action, leaving some games mid-game. Kadeem Carey was a beast, had 100 yards rushing against Winnipeg. In Winnipeg, had 100 yards rushing in the game before that, had nearly 100 in the most recent meeting between Winnipeg and Calgary. He gets into the end zone twice to give Winnipeg's defense their first 2 rushing touchdowns allowed this season. But getting Jackson Jeffcoat back, they now go big and bring in Ricky Walker at defensive tackle, remove defensive ends LB Mack and Cedric Wilcots. So some switch up in the Blue Bombers defensive front.
Well, and I think having Jackson back is a huge thing. I mean, I'm looking who he's going to go against. I mean, they got Nick Callender, second-year guy out of Colorado State at 1 tackle, and you got Landon Rice, the Manitoba boy, who's played 8 years, 4th year with Montreal. The other tackle. They're going to have their hands full. But they also signed Montreal just signed this week Pierre-Luc Dubois. This is a kid that tried out in the NFL, was on their practice roster a couple of years, and just got tired of waiting. He got released. He was tired of waiting, so he signed a 2-year contract with Montreal now. They said he picked up the playbook so much that that's why he's dressing this week. So I would not be surprised. listen, if you want to beat the Bombers, I think you got to take away the pressure on the outside. To me, maybe you run a double tight against these guys and stretch the ends out, right?
Right.
Maybe that's one of the things you do. Maybe you put Lestage or Brown, David Brown, the other backup lineman. But it'll be interesting to see the game plan they have that Anthony Cavill was going to come up with to try and take advantage of our aggressiveness and our aggressive nature on the Bomber defense, because we're always coming. Adam Bighill's coming from somewhere. He's coming with the middle. We used to call him Mad Dog Blitz, or he's coming outside. And then you got Rutledge, who does the same thing. Malik Clements is really fitting well there. Man, it's just the guys they put in there. I mean, those two guys at the dime and at the weak side have just played exceptional.
Chris, did you notice that the Blue Bombers at times against the Calgary Stampeders, and I've even seen it, some other times this season, where they'll have Willie Jefferson in at defensive end, and then they go with 3 defensive tackles, like a Jake Thomas, Cam Lawson, and Casey Sales. Kind of a big jumbo package, generally on running downs, but a little bit of creativity there from Richie Hall's defense.
Well, they're doing 3-4. It's a 3-4. So what they do is line up 3 tackles. They can use an end there if they want.
And then Willie's like an outside linebacker.
Yeah, and actually that's what I say. So you can drop Willie, play linebacker, put Willie everywhere he wants. But yeah, we used to do a lot of 3-4. Actually, our defense was predicated on a 3-4 defense back then. Great pressure. Because you don't know where the linebackers are coming. For an offensive line, it was probably one of the toughest things to block. The tackles are okay, but a lot of times they'll line the outside guy, so now you got a slide protection all the time. And if you got a guy in the nose who's good, you got your guard and tackle sliding out to whatever right or left, there's a big gap there now. And that nose tackle a lot of times takes advantage, and he can go and get some good pressure up the middle. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they play that. Then again, Richie Hall coming up with schemes that are just – there's nothing standard about him. He makes it so tough for the opposing team to study the defense, because they got to show you every look in practice. They got to show you that look so you're prepared for it.
Well, that's fascinating to get your perspective on that, Chris, because I sometimes see 5 defensive linemen. Yep. So you're telling me that 5-man front is actually a 3-4 defense where the 2 defensive ends are like NFL style outside linebackers.
That can be, or you bring another linebacker in. So maybe you bring Shane Gauthier, Les Morrow. Les Morrow got a sack, and that was on that very same thing.
That's right.
Morrow from the outside got his first sack as a CFL player.
And Teodric Hansen on the field at the same time. So 2 globals on the field for Winnipeg and getting a sack.
So that's that's a perfect example of that, when they come from the outside and they play that, and the O-line has to be able to pick it up, and they didn't pick it up. They stayed solid. And what I mean by solid is because they brought a linebacker on the guard, so the guard couldn't slide. Because your whole philosophy as an O-line is block inside out. Protect the inside, push everything to the outside. Well, if you got everybody covered, the back or somebody is responsible for that outside guy. In that case, it was Les Morrow. That either means your slot back's got to come down and pick him up, or the running back has to pick him up. They made a mistake, cost him a sack.
Chris, for those who are listening to this on podcast, I will read this comment because I also know your thesaurus is wedged under your short desk leg. But when you were a teacher, you were the only substitute teacher that could not only palm a basketball, he could palm a 6th grader, says T. Will in the live chat, watching live on YouTube. Good opportunity here to hear from Dalton Schoen, with it being a short week, a 1 practice week. 3 straight road games will be concluded on Thursday night for the Blue Bombers, and 10th straight game, including the preseason, yet to have their bye. I asked Dalton how him and his teammates are doing. Where are you and the guys right now?
We're doing all right. It's definitely a grind, and we know it. I think Coach said it well. The schedule is what it is. We can't do anything about it. We can't complain about it. But at the same time, we have to be aware of it so that we know where we need to put in the extra work when it comes to getting our bodies back, especially as receivers. We got to get our legs back. We run a lot. And then also in terms of the mental prep and how much extra work you have to put in, and the tape you got to get watched, and the game plan and stuff you got to study.
Being new to the CFL, what have you learned about, some of these hard-fought games? You still got 3 games against the Saskatchewan Roughriders that come, but you've already, had 2 hard-fought battles against the Stampeders.
I think the biggest thing I've learned is that pretty much every game's going to be hard-fought. We've had a lot of games come down to the wire. Those first couple games in Ottawa or with Ottawa. Those were tough. Those were hard fought. Came down to fighting it out at the end. And like you said, the Calgary games. I think with the way the game's set up, and especially how the last 3 minutes are, a lot can happen quickly there at the end. So you never know what's going to happen. Or we were up big in Toronto, and then it ended up being a super close game. So I think the biggest thing I've learned is that every game's going to be hard fought, and we kind of know that going into it.
Last one from me. Brady Oliveira talked about after the game how proud he was to kind of show everybody out there that he's capable of, making big plays and making big catches and big blocks and the rest. How proud are the guys or the offense as a whole that you were able to get the run game going as effectively as you did?
I think everyone's very proud of that. I think it's important as an offense to establish that run game or win the line of scrimmage per se, and just have a balanced attack. And I think we're all confident. We know that we can do that, so it definitely feels good to go out there and do it.
Very impressive young man is Dalton Schoen, of course, on the field, but off the field as well, Chris. Mature, grounded, and smart. You really have to wonder. You think of Brandon Zylstra with Edmonton a few years ago, had 2 outstanding seasons in the Canadian Football League, and then signed with the Minnesota Vikings, and has been in the NFL since. I really wonder if a similar fate down the road is that for Dalton Schoen.
Well, that's a great question. And and they're not going to talk about it. They're not going to talk about it because they don't want to. They're happy here. And that's another reason that they do such a good job, Kyle Walters and Wade Miller and those guys, because they create such a wonderful atmosphere here. The guys want to stay. But there is that draw for the money. Obviously, when you're talking about Dalton Schoen, I don't know if he signed a 2-year or a 1-year, probably a 1 year, which means he's free to go next year. And
he'll have that NFL window regardless, right? You can sign a 5-year contract and get that NFL window in December, January.
So you're more aware of that than I am because, but anyway, my biggest
it's been changing. It's been changing every year.
Right? To change it. It used to be that you had to have a 2-year so they try and keep continuity in your lineup.
Right.
And that's something I think that the players have fought against because they like the fact they have freedom to go somewhere else for maybe it's a little greener on the other side. But I really think that, I said this last week too, that some of these guys like Dalton Schoen, they're really, really upgrading.
Oh, did I lose you again?
That's your thing. You know what?
Well, you're gonna blame me because I gave you a microphone?
You spent all the money on a microphone and couldn't buy me a dang T-shirt.
Well, it's because I got to buy 2 T-shirts and sew them together. I'm working on it. I'm working on it. 63.
I'm sweating in here today.
Well, yeah, you got the guns out for sure. I had the toque on earlier because the Bombers are so ice cold in the way they play each other.
That white one's nice too.
I think it's just the light. This is the same gray one I had before.
Right, sorry.
No, man, oh man, you love your swag, don't you, Chris Walby?
I like to get swag. I have to look it up because I haven't got any for so long.
Well, maybe I'll trade you for that Lucky hat. I can't imagine what it looks like. It probably has a good aroma to it with a couple Luckies being cracked.
It's been here for a long time, man. I think it's pink now. It used to be red, but it's pink. So that's all it is right now.
Well, like you said earlier, you're a sensitive guy, so you can pull it off. I have no doubt about that. Chris, as we always do, right around the 1 hour mark, tell us your keys to the game, how Winnipeg can move to 9-0 with a win on a short week in La Belle Province.
Okay, 2 things for me, and these are not offense, defense, special teams. Number 1, stay healthy. Short week. You just heard Dalton Schoen talk about his legs. They're tired. Sometimes when you're tired, accidents happen. You trip or you hurt yourself on a game. So I said, hey, listen, stay healthy, number 1. And 2, I love having a balanced attack. I thought it was great that they ran the ball 22 times very effectively. I know they had the fly sweep, and I saw somebody posted that too with Janarian Grant. Obviously, Brady had a great game. You talk about Dakota Prukop just doing what he does. But anytime you can run that ball and you run it effectively, you're going to pull those linebackers up, and that's just going to open up the pass game with the play action. So, or RPO, run pass option, whatever you guys want to call it. So those are my 2. And defensively, I think it's, you know what? Just get in Harris's face. He doesn't like to get rattled. I think, you know what? He's not the quickest guy. He's not a guy that's going to scramble and beat you, downfield running. But he's got a great arm, and he's a tall quarterback. So get your arms up, get some pressure on him, make him hold the football. And listen, guys, Right now, Bombers 9-0. There you go. Bombers 9-0.
Yeah. Well, we are going to see 5.5-point favorites are the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in Montreal. Of course, you can go to SIA.com/bonfire, sign up there, get a bonus that'll double you up. And then, you can put a little something if you want on the games this weekend. SIA.com/bonfire. Chris, I know you got to go and make dinner for wifey, so we're going to let you go. I do want to encourage everybody, stick around. My conversation with Joey Alfieri of the Montreal Alouettes coming up after we sign off with Chris, so don't leave us yet. Still more to come here on Game Day Winnipeg. But Chris, another Thursday night game. I hope you have a great weekend after that. You'll be tuning in, as I know you always do, to Game Day After Dark and the post-game show here on Bonfire Sports. But enjoy the lake and, these August weekends that are slowly dwindling away.
Amen, and enjoy. Guys, all the Bomber fans out there, watch the game tomorrow. It's going to be a great game. I think Bombers will be 9-0. Watch some of the talent on this team because next year, you never know what happens, man. So, go Blue. Love you guys. DB, you're all right, man, even though you don't give me nothing. God bless you, brother. One day you'll buy me a shirt. One day something. You've promised to come over here 48 times and set me up with something, but you haven't. You owe me a check. For Christ's sake, I'm going out. I can't take it anymore. It's emotional. I got to go. See you guys. You're draining me mentally.
Take it easy, 6'3". Appreciate you, man. Chris Walby, the one and only on Game Day Winnipeg. All right, you've been waiting for it. My conversation with one of my favorite people on the CFL landscape. We even talk a little bit about Pierre-Luc Dubois and the interest of the Montreal Canadiens on the Winnipeg Jets top line center, maybe second line center, but very intriguing conversation. We get through the Montreal Alouettes, his new job with the organization, ownership, David Stern. Thank you to Tyler Fabry for correcting me on that. And then we talk a little bit of Winnipeg Jets, Montreal Canadiens, Pierre-Luc Dubois as well. So here's my conversation on Game Day Winnipeg with the one and only Joey Alfieri. Old pal Joey Alfieri, now with the Montreal Alouettes, joining us here on Game Day Winnipeg. Joey, good to see you, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing well, DB. Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's great to have you back on the Winnipeg airwaves as we used to do in our old TSN days. You now are with the Montreal Alouettes, a new gig for you this season. Tell us a little bit about how things are going with the Owls.
Yeah, things are great, man. I mean, this is the team that I grew up dreaming to work for. This is the team that I always wanted to be part of, and the opportunity presented itself in the month of February. So I made the leap. I took a chance because I did really enjoy being in the mainstream media, but it's been really cool. So now I'm in-house reporter. So I go to every practice. I'm around the guys. We're doing interviews. We're writing articles. We're out there. I'm taking care of social media. I'm the social media manager as well. We create content as a team. We're starting doing some TikTok as well this season. So it's been really cool, man. To be part of the team's been really awesome, and I couldn't have asked for a better landing spot. It's been great.
Yeah, well, hey, you got an opportunity now to utilize that huge skill set you have, Joey. And I've been enjoying watching the social media and all the work the Owls have been doing from afar. When it comes to the Alouettes themselves, though, Joey, it's been a year of change, new ownership, a decision to move on from Kahari Jones and Baron Miles in the coaching staff, changes at quarterback. How are things right now with two new individuals in charge of the on-field football operations, general manager Danny Machocha, now the head coach, and somebody Montreal and us in the CFL very familiar with, Noel Thorpe, now the new defensive coordinator?
It's funny, like if you like I'm watching the opinions from the outside of the province of Quebec, because the changes that have been made, everyone has an opinion on them. Sure. But for the most part, I would say in this province, the people who watch the Alouettes week in, week out, who follow on the daily, it's been pretty positive here. But it's been funny to watch the reaction out west. It's just like, I don't know, I feel like there's times where the team is portrayed like it's chaos or it's chaotic, and it just isn't. Like I was on the outside looking in, but I covered chaos, immediately after, Calvillo, Crompton and that era, it did get a bit chaotic. And here, I mean, everything seems to be aligned. And people forget, it was a tough start to the year last year too. The Owls came out of the gate 2-5. They're 2-5 now. I like where this team is headed. I know that people are disappointed with the result, and I think at 2-5 you have to be disappointed, because before the start of the season, I thought that this is a team that would compete for top spot in the East Division, and I still feel that way. I really like the way this team looks on paper. I like the individuals that are here. I like the people that are steering the ship. I think all those people are, they're on point. They know what's what when it comes to CFL and what this market needs. And with all the changes and all that being said, this is a team that's one game out of first place in the East. So, that probably says more about the East than it does about the Alouettes. But I think that, just watching internally, it feels like this thing is going in the right direction, even though, the typical diehard CFL fan out West might see it otherwise in a different way. I like where this is headed. I think on paper, this is a really good team. I think it's a team of veterans, and I think the group is going to put it all together. I really feel like it's close.
Yeah, well, we're approaching the midway point of the season. In the next couple of weeks, pretty much every team will have 9 games in the books and 9 still to go. And you mentioned at 2-5, tied with Hamilton as of right now for second place, and just 2 points out of first. We've seen pretty much every team in the East look good at times and struggle at times. But you're right. People in the West maybe a little bit spoiled with the 3 main powers in the CFL right now. Here in Winnipeg, of course, Nathan Rourke, a really exciting player, starting a resurgence with the BC Lions, and of course the Calgary Stampeders having a bounce back year already. 2 losses, but both coming to the Blue Bombers. Let's talk about quarterbacks in Montreal. It started with Vernon Adams Jr. Former head coach Kahari Jones decided to move to Trevor Harris. Now it looks like VA is injured and placed on the 6-game injured list this week. But Trevor Harris looks like it's his team moving forward.
Yeah, and for the most part, look, I think Trevor's done really well. I mean, he was a top performer in the CFL 2 weeks ago, and he's put up numbers. I listen. The Hamilton defense was a stiff test. I think Trevor and the offense would tell you themselves that they struggled coming out of the gate, but once they put it all together, I mean, you saw how good they were late in the third quarter and in the fourth quarter, they nearly came back from a double-digit point deficit and loss. So, I've been preaching since the start of the year that this is a football team that was going to need both quarterbacks. It felt that way, and you go back to last year, they rolled 3 different starting quarterbacks, so you kind of felt they were going to need both. And oh, by the way, Dominique Davis has had a really great season in terms of short yardage and what he's done. He's been automatic. He leads the CFL in touchdowns going into this week, just to give you an idea. So they have kind of they've leaned on all 3 quarterbacks at different times for different things. Look, for right now, obviously with VA on the 6-game injured list, it's unfortunate. But they're starting. I think you saw in Ottawa, he fumbled, but they're starting to try to put that package together for VA to get in, and you probably would have seen both had VA been healthy last week. But I think there's still time for Vernon to come back. 6 games is not the end of the season, and Trevor has played really, really well for the most part here. So, listen, I don't put anything past anyone in this league just because of you know how it is with the short weeks. The body gets beaten up. You're going to need to roll multiple quarterbacks. I think that's just the reality of the CFL. So, would it shock me if you saw VA in there at some point? It wouldn't shock me, but I commend Trevor Harris because he came in, was number 2 on the depth chart when he got here, and I've learned a lot personally from watching Trevor Harris myself because he came in, had the right attitude. He's the first one in, last one out. All those cliches, they apply to him because they're true. I've seen it with my own eyes. All of a sudden, you get an opportunity to start, and I feel like he's done a really, really good job. So if it is Trevor Harris between now and the end of the season, I feel good about that if I'm a Montreal Alouettes fan.
Yeah, you know what? I'll reiterate what you just said about Trevor Harris. And my personal interactions with him, as well as what I've heard about him, always does things the right way and is a great leader inside locker rooms. Joey Alfieri, the Montreal Alouettes, joining us here on Game Day Winnipeg. when it comes to some of those injuries, and I do want to talk about, the short week and facing the Blue Bombers in this home-and-home series on consecutive Thursdays beginning this week, Joey, how difficult has it been in Montreal, not just for the talent loss, but the leadership loss of having William Stanback injured so very early this season? The league's leading rusher last year, and for anybody's dollar, one of the best players in the league.
Yeah, people forget, if you're not inside the market, people forget that, the MOP candidate in the East last year got hurt in the first half of the first game of the season. Right. And this is an Alouettes football team that, if you look at the last couple of years, this is a football team that likes to run the ball a lot. So thankfully, there's been some, there's some depth. Jess Renantui's had some real good performances. He's a guy they drafted a few years ago in the 6th round, Canadian tailback, who's done real well. He carved up Calgary for a 70-yard run in the first game of the season after Stanback went out, had a 50-plus yard run against Ottawa that set up a touchdown a couple weeks ago. So he's a guy who's produced real well. It's tough to fill in for a William Stanback. I mean, Stanback's a horse. Like, there's no way around it. He's a guy who you can literally put the team on his back. We've seen it. 2019 had a 203 rushing yard performance. He did the exact same thing in 2021. Like, he's a running back that can change the game, and there aren't really many of those left in professional football. So that's a big loss. Another underrated loss is Greg Reed. He's the senior member of that secondary. Right. That's been a big loss. Chris Aki coming off the 6-game injured list this week is huge. He was hurt in the second week of the year, hasn't played in 5 games. So that's a big one as well. So they've lost key leaders on this football team, but I don't think anybody's using it as an excuse. I think you look at Winnipeg, they've overcome injuries. You look at Calgary, they've overcome injuries as well. Every team had to overcome some type of injury. So I don't think it's an excuse, but it's a fair point that you bring up, because it's not just Stanback, but Stanback's a big one. They've lost some key leaders in that locker room.
Yeah, I was extremely impressed in my conversation with William Stanback during Grey Cup week. As you mentioned, the East Division MOP nominee last season. I'll invite our viewers out there right now. If you head over to all of our videos in the channel, you can see my one-on-one conversation with William Stanback following an outstanding 2021 season. And everybody, all CFL fans, surely pulling for William to get back to health as soon as he can. Joey, it is a short week for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. They're coming off a very clean, very entertaining, but no doubt very wearing game at McMahon in a win over the Calgary Stampeders. And then they'll have 7 days, and Montreal will come here to Winnipeg for the back-to-back before Winnipeg gets their first bye of the season. It's unbelievable. Many teams have already had 2, I believe your club included. So how do you see these games shaking out? Are the Alouettes hoping to see maybe Winnipeg ripe for the picking?
Yeah, so the Owls actually have one. Their second one's coming up at the end of the month. But Toronto, for example, has had 2. There's a couple other teams as well. But yeah, I think for the most part, whenever the Owls have had that advantage in terms of playing a team on a short week, they've taken care of business this year. And that's why this matchup is kind of intriguing to me. Is that, listen, I'm not going to spin it any other way. The Bombers are the class of the league. You'd be a fool to suggest otherwise. But this is a team that does have to travel. They did play an emotional game, a big-time game against Calgary, another power in the West. But I think when I'm looking at short weeks, and yes, Montreal took care of Saskatchewan, Montreal took care of Ottawa, both those teams coming on short weeks, Winnipeg's just a different beast. So, I think the Bombers have been there. They've done that. They know how to win. They know how to conserve energy. I know they had a walkthrough early on in the week before. I think their first practice of the week was a walkthrough. So, they know, Mike O'Shea, the staff, they know how to manage their players. They know how to manage their bodies. And it's obviously a team that's very deep at a lot of positions. So, I don't know how much of a factor that's going to be. What I know is that the Alouettes are going to have to play that perfect or nearly perfect brand of football that they have played at times this year. They have, where they don't take penalties and they move the ball effectively and the defense gets after the quarterback. They've done that. They put that on paper, but they're going to have to do it for 60 minutes if they're going to win the first of these 2 matchups. And the first one's big because you want to make sure that you don't go to Winnipeg coming off a loss to the Blue Bombers. And listen, Montreal played Winnipeg tough last year. It was a tie game going into the 4th quarter, and then things kind of fell apart late in, I believe that was a November game in Winnipeg last year. So I think Montreal can go toe-to-toe with Winnipeg. I think Montreal can go toe-to-toe with anybody. They've shown that this year. But it's all about putting it together for 60 minutes. And that's what they're going to have to prove to themselves. And there's no better opportunity to do that at home against a two-time defending Grey Cup champs on Thursday night.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree, Joey. I've been impressed when Montreal's playing well. They really can hang with anybody in the CFL. And Blue Bomber fans know how difficult it is to go into Percival Molson Stadium in Montreal, and Winnipeg's always been in tough in that building. So it'll be interesting to see how things shake out Thursday night. Tell me about one of my favorite players in the whole league, and I'll admit I'm a little bit biased because I played a little wide receiver when I was a younger kid. But Gino Lewis is just such a talent. And, you know, I know Jake Weineke led the CFL in receiving touchdowns last season, a very explosive offense with William Stanback and the receiving game last season. But Gino just continues to amaze with the way he's able to control his body, the hands, the athleticism, the speed. What a treat he must be to watch up close.
Yeah, I mean, it's brilliant. It's funny that you mentioned Gino because he was actually walking around the office today, and I had a chance to speak to him for a few minutes. I told him, I'm like, you know, I'm looking at the box score once the game's over in Hamilton, and it's just, you know, it's ho-hum, 5 catches, 164 yards.
Right.
And in crunch time, too. I mean, second and long, you know where Trevor Harris is going to go, and oftentimes the defenses can't stop it. You know, there's been some big third down catches for him this year. I mean, he comes through time and time again. And I think, you know, you saw it, you know, right before the pandemic, the 2019 season, where he elevated his game big time, especially in that second half of the year. And, you know, even in the first half, you looked at it and you're like, okay, I see there's some star qualities here. Like, this is a player who has the ability to be an impact receiver in the Canadian Football League for a long time. And he's put it all together. And to me, given the size, the strength, he moves pretty well for a guy of his size. I mean, I really don't know how you stop him without double teaming him, without having some safety help over the top. I don't know how you stop him one-on-one. So the games where, you know, and even in games a couple weeks ago in Ottawa, I think he had under 40 yards, but he had a catch on a 2-point conversion, and he had a huge touchdown reception. So, you know, even when you can limit the damage, he's still beating you to make big plays. So I'm glad you mentioned him. I feel like he deserves to get a little more love league-wide because here he's become a fan favorite. And, you know, you've already started seeing the number 87 jerseys pop up in the crowd quite a bit. So he's really been a treat to watch up close, and he's just a good dude. So I'm glad he's having a lot of success. Yeah, no, I'm glad to hear that. And you're right. He does need a little bit more respect put on his name. What an unbelievable receiver, you know, clutch and just consistent in the way he's able to put up numbers. I do got to say, very cool to see him and Herji Mayala with Burna Boy on some of your social media channels. Burna Boy, the African giant, as he self-refers to himself, one of my favorite musical artists, frankly, in the world right now. But I'll advise people to maybe go check out that meeting where they give him a little bit of a gift from the Montreal Alouettes. Before I let you go, Joey, look. I know he's your boss, but tell me about the new ownership in Montreal. Speaking of social media, not afraid to shoot from the hip is Gary Stern. No, I love it. I mean, he's just such a good man. You know, it's really nice to have. Listen, I don't have to tell you guys, it was tough around here. You know, even if I didn't work for the team, it was tough around here when there's no owner. They're trying to build some positive momentum. The team had a good year in 2019. But there was still a lot of ways to go. And I think, you know, you look at Gary Stern and what he's been able to do in terms of, you know, not just financing the operation, but the people that he hired and put in place. The man definitely knows, you know, when he meets football people and executives that you know have a pulse for the city and for the football team, he recognized that. And I think you look at what he did by bringing in the president, Mario Cecchini. You look at what he did by bringing in Danny Machocha as general manager. These are people that care about the football team. They care about the city. They know what the city needs when it comes to a Canadian Football League team. And so I think Gary Stern deserves a lot of credit for that, for finding the right people to put in place to run this thing. And then, you know, the social media stuff is fun. It's fun. I mean, I can't even tell you how many fans will come up to me at practice and say, like, hey, I got Twitter because of the owner. That's why I signed up to Twitter. And so, that's all you can ask for from your owner. You want him to be passionate. You want him to be, involved in the community. And even though, he's not from Montreal and doesn't live in Montreal, I think I can tell you that, the fans have developed a connection with him. So it's been really cool to watch that. It's been really cool to work for him, but it's been really fun. It's been a really nice environment around here. And I think the people that he hired really make that all possible.
Yeah, watching from afar, it sure seems to me, Joey, is somebody who's watched league-wide closely for over a decade now. I do believe the Montreal Alouettes are definitely headed in the right direction. I have to ask you, Joey, because you're still writing hockey, I believe, for NBC, and you've been covering the Montreal Canadiens as much as the Alouettes through your journalistic career. How bad do people in Montreal want Pierre-Luc Dubois?
Yeah, for the record, I don't write NBC anymore.
Okay.
But it's all good. But I mean, I follow closely. I'm in there day to day. I'm looking at it. I mean, he's a great player. I think from the time he was drafted, that draft year, I remember there was all kinds of buzz about Marc Bergevin wanting to move up to snag Pierre-Luc Dubois, and they in the end they couldn't make it work. They couldn't move up ahead of Columbus, but he's a guy from that time, and I've spoken to him multiple times, interviewed him a few times on the radio. He's a guy who's real involved in the community in Montreal as well. I mean, he's everything that you want. I mean, growing up here, I think you and I are about the same age, and I can say, being a diehard Canadiens fan growing up, it was always like, where do you go get that big-bodied center that can produce offense? And I think when people see him, and they see a guy from here, a guy who has produced, a guy who's played at a real high level at the NHL, they start salivating. And you can obviously see why. I mean, he's the total package. When he's on, he's on. He's been great. So the fact that he's from here is just a bonus. And the fact that, listen, I mean, clearly it looks like he wants to be here and he wants to play in Montreal. That hasn't always been the case, especially for some local guys. They want to shy away from it. And I certainly understand why they would, because that's a lot of pressure to be here, and everything you do is nitpicked. So look, I think if the Canadiens can land Pierre-Luc Dubois, I think that's, they obviously upgrade. It's huge. I just think that it puts Winnipeg, unfortunately, in a difficult spot, because, once you go public with the fact that you want to be somewhere else, it kind of puts a damper on what the team can possibly get for you. So I don't know. I'm curious to see if Montreal and Winnipeg can make a deal work. But if not, I think the Canadiens are probably comfortable just, waiting out the 2 years before he's a UFA and then signing him then. But, I think the Canadiens deserve a lot of credit because they're heading in the right direction, clearly. I like what they've done this offseason. I think there's still some rebuilding that needs to be done. But you accelerate the process big time if you're able to land a guy like Pierre-Luc Dubois without giving a core asset in return, because there's no way that they're giving up Suzuki, Caulfield, or anything like that.
Right. Well, that draft year was a fascinating one. And I think Pierre-Luc Dubois got overlooked as far as the media and fan chatter when you had Austin Matthews at 1, Patrick Laine at 2, and then Columbus being an American team picking up Dubois at number 3. Fascinating turn of events as of late regarding Dubois, and a touchy subject here in Winnipeg, but very good to get your insight on that, Joey, and sharp as always. But looking forward to the game on Thursday. Should be a great home-and-home series between, in my opinion, Winnipeg Blue Bombers' biggest rival historically between the East and the West. Thanks for your time as always, my friend, and we'll catch up with you soon.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me.
Well, it was great to catch up with Joey Alfieri a little bit earlier today, and nice to talk a little bit of hockey with him as well. Just an outstanding reporter and an outstanding person. Appreciate everybody for joining us here on Game Day Winnipeg and the pregame show. Bombers Alouettes Thursday night in Montreal. Post-game live right here on Bonfire Sports Thursday after the game, maybe 5, 10, 15 minutes, something like that after the final whistle. We will break it all down. And then, of course, as we always do, Tuesday night, 7:30, live here on Bonfire. It's Bonfire Midweek with myself and Zach Schnitzer. Thanks to everybody for joining us. Live chat was lit up tonight, and really looking forward to the Blue Bombers game in Montreal. Thanks again, everybody. We will see you next time here on Bonfire Sports.